Hi, thanks for joining me. Let's take a look at the Unearthed Arcana 2023 Player's Handbook, Druid and Paladin. So I'll be going over the things that have changed from either the 2014 Player's Handbook or the very latest playtests, being the Cleric and Species or anything before that. So Rules Glossary, we know that that supersedes the glossary in previous Unearthed Arcana, and there's some issues with that because they dropped some things out that they said they didn't drop out, so we'll talk to that when we get there. And you're supposed to use only the rules glossary found here. Then a new thing in the bottom right hand of the first page, after we conclude the public playtest for the Player's Handbook, Unearthed Arcana will explore material for the Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual. I wonder if they'll overlap a little bit, given their time constraints remaining. Okay. Then we have subclass. If the older subclass offers features at levels that are different from the subclass levels in the class, follow the older subclass's level progression after the class lets you gain the subclass. Or, I mean, if you're a DM, you can adjust that because some subclasses don't get their stuff till very late, and that would not fit with the new level bands where they're doing stuff for the playtest. Then the first class is Druid. So let's compare the Druid here in the playtest to a Druid in 5th edition. We can see everything marked here in yellow is all new. One thing they changed here is their channel nature, or this will also be channel divinity. It's going to get to a maximum of 4 uses, and it's tied to the class. So you can't take a dip of one level and get, at 20th level, 6 uses of whatever the channel divinity feature is or channel nature is. So they did that to, help multi-classing. Spells continue to be that you prepare as many as you can cast. So slots and spells prepared are different. In fact, you can prepare 3 spells, say at 2nd level, and cast the same spell 3 times. So it is a small reduction in prepared spells, or in some cases an increase, depending on the class or the character's ability scores. But it does take away some of the nuances in how you could prepare spells. Then, okay, so we have channel nature. They rolled some of the druid's existing powers into that. Things like, what would be something that you have existing? Wild Shape, for example, being the main one. But there's some other ones that they have there. Nature's Aid is new. The Druid subclass comes in at 3rd instead of at 2nd level. They get Might of the Land. Their forms at 7th level, they have Aquatic. That used to be, I believe, 4th level. And at 9th level, Aerial. That used to be, I think, 8th level. When they'd get that, let's just take a peek here. So when they're doing Wild Shape, it was, 4th and 8th for the different types of creatures. Then they have tiny critters. They used to be able to get tiny critters like immediately. As soon as you could wild shape, you could turn into a spider if you wanted to. Now it's pretty limited. So big change there. Big change in the ability of a druid to be a really powerful scout. And I don't know, maybe that's to balance it with the rogue and make sure the rogue is still the best scout, not the druid. And then alternating forms, I like this where you can go back and forth between your form and you don't use multiple uses of changing shape. So if you're doing an infiltration, you want to fly to a spot, then be a person, then turn into a bird again, fly somewhere else, be a person again, etc. You can do that. Wild Resurgence lets you wild shape and heal. And then Beast Spells is a little bit more powerful than it was before. And Moon Druids get some Beast Spells right away. Okay, so there's that. Let's look at features. Change here, they don't make any mention of only being able to use wooden shields and non-metal armor. But they did change that they no longer get medium armor proficiency or training. So that used to be light and medium, and now it's just light. And weapons, from this long list of weapons here, is just simple. So all restrictions against metal gone as far as I can tell. I noticed here in this playtest, starting equipment varies by class, which I don't think is a good thing. These guys here, druids, are 50. Paladins, I think we'll see, is 150 when we get to them. Multiclassing, again, just light armor. First level, channel nature. So again, it's tied to your class level, and you can regain 1 use with a short rest or all uses with a long rest. Wild shape is lost if you're incapacitated, and I think that is new. I don't know for sure, but I think it's new that you lose it if you're incapacitated. Let's take a look. Wild shape. Class features. Wild shape. Let's just find in cap. In cap. Yeah, no mention of incapacitated in there. So that's new. And then the forms you take, instead of picking a creature, you take the form of whatever creature you want. I'm of a mixed mind about this. It's kind of cool that you're picking specific creatures, but there's always like, well, have you seen that creature? And it was a pretty big skill mastery for some characters that, look through every book, find the best dinosaur there is, and always turn into that, for example. So this kind of levels the playing field on the skill mastery a little bit. And we'll get to what those things are in a second. Here's a design note about Channel Divinity in Nature, not using proficiency bonus anymore, and that being too generous for a multi-class character. And the next version of Cleric will have a similar treatment. So that's good. First level Druidic, you can leave secret messages. These used to be a perception defined, now it's investigation defined. Prepared spells we talked about a little bit. And the interesting thing, is that you can now change what cantrips you have as well. As addition, and are they called cantrips or are they called 0 level spells? Let's see. Yep, still called cantrips. Okay. Then Nature's Aid. So at second level, you can use your Channel Divinity or your Channel Nature to do Healing Blossoms, which heals number of D4 is equal to your Wisdom mod. And you can distribute it amongst any creatures in a 10-foot radius within 30 feet of you. And then Wild Companion, you can summon a companion, which is the same as a Find Familiar. Druid subclass comes in at third. Might of the Land unlocks the climb speed. So you used to get climbing like immediately. Now you don't get that until your 5th level. Aquatic form, which you used to get at 4th level, now you get at 7th. Aerial form at 9th. Tiny critters at 11th, and it's for a reduced duration too. And damage is halved. Of course, he did like no damage before. So that's a lot more damage than he used to do in a tiny form. Alternating forms, you can switch back and forth as a bonus. Wild Resurgence, Healing Blossoms, and Channel at the same time. Okay, so 17th level Beast form. Let's look at when you used to get Beast spells before. So at 18th level, you could do Somatic and Verbal, but not Material. And now you can do Material as long as the material components are free. And it's a level lower, 17th instead of 18th. And then Archdruid, whenever you roll initiative, you gain another Channel Nature. For every 10 years, your body age is only 1 year. And then Epic Boons, they beefed up a little bit by giving them an ability score increase that can increase above 20 or Epic Boon feat. And they say they'll do that to all the other classes when they revisit those. Okay, wild shapes. So they talked about in the wild shape up above, let's see here. See, when you transform, you choose whether your equipment falls to the ground in your space or merges into your new form. And you lose access to all your other features. Okay, your ability to handle objects is determined by that form's limbs rather than your own. But, so this is a big one. Your ability to handle objects rather than your own. But you get to set what your form looks like and what limbs it has. So I think they should decide a hard decision there what that's going to be. Because when you transform, you can take a hybrid form that incorporates visual characteristics from 2 or more animals. And they say this has no effect on the form's capabilities, but it would if you chose to be able to use objects and carry stuff. So they need to touch base on that a little bit, clean that up a little bit. Okay, now Animal of the Land. So your armor class increases with your wisdom mod. Your hit points increase. Well, they're your hit points. Your speed, you can climb 40 once you're 5th level, but otherwise you just move 40. Use your con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and your strength and dex are made equal to your wisdom score. They should say the higher of your wisdom score or your existing strength or dex, because what if your strength or dex was higher than your wisdom score? Dark vision, languages all pretty straightforward. Now we come to Animal of the Sea, and the same thing about dex. It should be the higher of your dex or your wisdom. I don't know why dark vision keeps going up on all these forms. I mean, if it's just a function of how skilled you are, what level you are as a druid, then this should go up as well. So I would bring all those back into 60 feet, I think. And I don't know why the damage goes down. I mean, it is because that form has other benefits, but you're higher level, so you might as well just keep it the same, make the bestial strikes the same across the board. That simplify things, that'd be a balance issue. And I don't think these animals do much damage anyway, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. Circle of the Moon. Okay, so you get that at 3rd level now. And here, while you're in wild shape, you can cast abjuration spells, provided they don't have a material component. So what are abjuration spells? Let's take a quick peek ahead here. Primal spells. So what could you cast? Abjuration resistance, cure wounds, healing word, protection from evil and good. Well, these are all divine. Where are the primal? Here we go. Still resistance. You'll have cure wounds, probably not healing word though. Oh, you do healing word. Okay. What else? Abjuration, lesser restoration. That probably has material components, etc. So you get the gist of that. Let's come back here to Druid. So quick attack, you can use unarmed strike as a bonus. Well, that seems odd. Why not just make it one more use of bestial strike? Make multi-attack 3 times, or let's see, you'd only be 3rd level, so just give one more attack of bestial strike attack as a bonus instead. I would do that. Swift transformation. You can change shape as a bonus action or a magic action. Well, one is a type of action. I don't know what they're saying here. They need to clear that up. No more than once a turn. So, yeah, they should clarify. They really need to clarify all their actions a little better. They're kind of going loose with them, with the playtest stuff. Okay, elemental wild shape. So you can do damage as acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder instead of the regular damage. You get resistance to the chosen type. Yeah, your bestial strike can do the different damage if you like. You choose every time you attack with it. When you get to 10th level, you do an extra d6 of the type. At 17th, 2d6. Still feels like you're falling behind on damage output a little bit here, even with the one extra attack. 1,000 forms, alter self like before, just clarify the wording a little bit. So no elemental. They built it into the form, and I think they need to up the damage a little. Okay, that's the Druid. I don't know. I'm of two minds about the animals. I think I like it. I think it needs some tweaks to be the right power level, but I think I like it. Okay, Paladin. So let's go look at Paladin here. Okay, so spellcasting moved to 1st level, and they have cantrips. So a lot more spells for them to cast. Then they have Faithful Steed, which they get for free. Their subclass features also give them spells, which they can cast once for free. Their Aura Protection moved up to 7th level from 6th. Abjure Foes is new. Radiant Strikes is new. Aura of Courage is 13th now instead of 10th. Restoring Touch is similar to Cleansing Touch. Their Aura Expansion is at 17th now instead of 18th, I believe. And then Divine Conduit, I think gets them Channel Divinities back every time they do initiative. And then, of course, Epic Boon. And the Channel Divinity is tied to the class instead of proficiency. Okay, here's the gold being much different than a Druid, for example. 100 gold different. Proficiencies gained. That's all standard. Here it clarifies how multiclassing will work with prepared spells and spell slots. So your spell slots, there'll be a multiclassing table similar to what exists now. Multiclassing. Yeah, there's a multiclassing table. So you get the spell slots of a full caster, but you only count half your levels in Paladin and combine them with full levels in full casters. And then you'll prepare spells individually for classes. So that's going to work. 1st level Lay on Hands, they took away removing disease from that. So if we have Lay on Hands, it used to cure 1 disease. Now it's just poison. First level spellcasting. Here's some example spells. Divine spell list ends the whole spell list. I think the Ranger was limited quite a bit, but the Paladin's the whole spell list in the playtest. Divine Smite. The wording's a little different. Do they intend this isn't adding to your weapon damage and doesn't get doubled on a crit? I don't know. We're going to have to find out for sure. I would still have it double on a crit, the way it's worded here. And it can be a ranged weapon or an unarmed strike. I think a lot of people like that. I don't really, but that's all right. No big deal, really. The extra damage versus fiends and undead is gone. That seems odd. You can use the Divine Smite no more than once during a turn, so that's the big nerf. The big nerf is that. You can't use it on the same turn you cast a spell. I don't like this at all. They did this because what they did to change some Divine Smite spells, they don't want you to double up on that. I don't know. All those spells take a bonus, maybe make Divine Smite a bonus. But I hate things that make spells sometimes castable and sometimes not castable, like the bonus action and the cantrip thing. So hopefully that'll change and become simpler and clearer. Channel Divinity, same as everything else with Channel Divinity, or at least the Druid in this playtest. Divine Sense is a lot better. It's a bonus action. It does take your Channel Divinity. It's not a separate pool of resources, so it better be a lot better. But for the next 10 minutes, you'll know anything around you, as opposed to like a one-time instantaneous ping, which kind of sucks. If you want to go into a room and know what's in there, you got to go in there and then use an action while you're in there. So this is much better. Faithful Steed, you always have Find Steed spell prepared. Doesn't count against your total. You cast it as an action, and once without a spell slot. So very nice. Aura of Protection. This is the same, and that's really powerful. I would almost tie it back to the Channel Divinity number of uses. So it caps out at +4. Because it's like a party with a Paladin and a party not with a Paladin can be like much more effective with the Paladin and take a lot more damage and resist a lot more spells. It doesn't say this ends either. Like a regular Paladin's aura ends if they go unconscious, or isn't effective if they're unconscious. It's just not working if they're unconscious. Let's look at the auras here. Aura of Protection. You must be conscious to grant this bonus. No talk there. So that needs to be added back in, I think. They can only be affected by one aura at a time. So if you have special features of different auras, only one's affecting a person at a time. Abjure of Foes. Number of creatures equal to your Charisma mod. Wisdom save. They are dazed and frightened for a minute or until they take damage. Dazed for 1 minute or until it takes damage. So I don't know about the whole till it takes damage. Maybe repeat the save instead. Radiant Strikes. I would match this up with whatever you do for what kind of attacks can have a smite added to them. And it doesn't match right now. I'd change that. Aura of Courage. Oh, they added that if you have frightened and you enter it, it's suppressed. So that clarifies that a little bit. It used to be Aura of Courage. You can't be frightened while you are conscious. Well, they also have to cover the conscious part. Restoring Touch. So you can spend 5 hit points from the healing pool to do all these different conditions. Instead of the Cleansing Touch used to dispel on yourself or a willing creature. When you use Lay on Hands on a creature, you can also remove one or more of the following conditions. So the spell's not gone, but a lot of these conditions come from spells. Aura Expansion at 17th level. And Divine Conduit. Roll initiative, regain a class Channel Divinity. And then Epic Boon, again, increase the score by 2, above 20 if you want, or take a feat. So that's the Paladin. A little bit about breaking a Paladin's oath and forcing them to take a more appropriate subclass or abandon the class. Free casting of their oath spells once per long rest. So you'll see these oath spells used more often because of that. Describe a bit of change from what's in the Oath of Devotion. Let's look at Oath of Devotion. Oath of Devotion. So quite a bit of spell changes from that. Sacred Weapon used to be an action. Now it's a bonus action, so that's nice. It doesn't say it becomes a magic weapon, though. Only that you can do damage, it's radiant damage instead, which most things don't resist, so that's good. I think it ends all on all the same reasons. Smite and protection. So now here's what they're doing for extra stuff with auras and smites. It's pretty neat how they can add more things in there. This one grants temporary hit points equal to D8 plus level of the spell slot used for the divine smite to someone. 10th level, Aura of Devotion. That's the charm protection that only came at 7th level. So all the protections are going a little bit higher level for the paladin. However, one's not. Holy Nimbus, which was 20th level, is now only 14th level. And that grants damage equal to proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier. So that's probably going to be like 10 points of damage to every enemy every turn. And it's sunlight, so vampires watch out. And you can get it back by expending a spell slot at 4th level. So that's a big boost right there at 14th level. All right, so that's the two classes. Let's see. I mean, I got to play them. They're not terrible. Yeah, I mean, they feel about the same balance. The Divine Smite's been nerfed a lot, and that was really powerful, but they can still do it. The clarity on if it can be crit or not. I think Aura Protection is the real bonus of a Paladin, and that still is going to full strength. Okay. Let's look at a couple feats. So we have Epic Boon of Fate. Boon of Fate. So this, you used to be able to do it once. This is weird. Now you have 8 uses of the benefit, and you can regain 2 to 4 of them. So I don't know if I like tracking that. And then it says fails a test, but then you can apply a penalty. So they need to work on that wording a little bit. I like it that you can, maybe they say fail or succeed on a test. You can give a bonus or a penalty, something to clear that up. Spell recall, much different than, spell recall. Basically, you could cast any spell you had one time for long rest. Now you can do possibly first level spells like almost forever. There's only a 25% chance every time you use this power to not be able to use it again. Or actually, no, it just isn't expended unless you roll a 1. So you can get a lot more low level spells. I don't think I like that compared to what's here, but what's here is kind of weak. So it's probably balanced somewhere between those two. And then True Sight's the same effect, but you can also increase the score. And they say they're going to make them all more epic, and they'll offer more in the future. Okay, now we're to the glossary. So they did something odd. So with the smites, they made it a bonus action, which you can take immediately after hitting. That's not bad. The weapon and an unarmed strike. And then they have a duration of a minute, no concentration, repeat the save. So that's not the same as a banishment spell, which the banishment spell is missing here. And I don't think that's on purpose. It's banishment, a divine spell. Let's see here. Or a primal spell. It's not, but it's still, might come up in playtest for other character classes. And they say don't use this, but they didn't list it as something that was removed. Spell description. Oh, maybe okay, I see what they did. They pulled the spell descriptions out of the rules glossary. So you'd want to go back and use any old spell descriptions. They should clarify that. They don't say they removed any of them. So guidance isn't removed, but it doesn't show up. Resistance isn't removed, but it doesn't show up. A banishment, bark skin, that'd be handy for a druid, right? So they need to clarify that. I think all the playtest ones are still in effect, but it's not made clear here that that's true or not true. Okay, so I think this Banishing Smite should have concentration, or, maybe they're doing this for combat type spells, combat type spellcasters, no concentration, but repeating saves. Blinding Smite, similar, no concentration. And And they do repeat saves. So yeah, no concentration, repeat saves. That might be better than concentration for these two spells. But they didn't do it everywhere. We'll see that later. Okay, so now Find Familiar. Varies by spell level. That's interesting. There won't be 500 million owls in the world because there's no flyby attack with any of these things. So that's good, in my opinion. There is an extra dimensional escape. So if a person targets a familiar, you get one, get out of jail free card where the familiar goes into this extra dimensional space and is still alive at 1 hit point. They have telepathy 120 feet, used to be 100 feet. They'll have a little bit more hit points, probably. The remote viewing doesn't seem to have a limit on how far. So that's new. That used to be 100 feet, I believe. And they can make attacks. Otherworldly Scratch, do a 1+ spell level of damage. And Deliver Spell used to be 100 feet, now it's 120. So just a few things to tidy up there on that one. I like it overall. I was tired of every familiar ever being an owl, for sure. And their flyby attack was annoying because they were always helping all the time. Oh, they did clarify, too, that in combat, they share your initiative. They used to roll separately. Let's look at Find Familiar spell. Find Familiar. Yeah. It used to say acts independently of you, rolls its own initiative, acts on its own turn. Now it goes right after you. And I used to always do that, but people used them to help with help actions. I always hated that because you can't really plan it out that way as well. So I'm glad for this change. It can't attack unless you use your reaction to have it attack. Disappears if you die. That wasn't in the old Find Familiar. Makes sense though. Okay, Find Steed. It talks about if it will protect you. Serves as you mount. Disappears if it drops to 0. Doesn't say what happens if you drop to 0, but now it on purpose tries to protect you if you drop to 0. Or if you're incapacitated. If you die, it disappears. It gets more powerful at higher levels, and it actually starts out pretty powerful. At second level, this would be 25 hit points, whereas a Warhorse, which is something you'd normally get with it, so Warhorse here, 19 hit points. So a little bit better than what you'd normally get. And at 4th level, it can fly. Oh no, 4th level spell. Okay, that'd be a pretty high level Paladin. What level Paladin would that be? Let's see here. Paladin, level 4. That'd be 13th level. But you multi-class, you could get there close to 8th level. So a reason for Paladin multi-class, as if they didn't need that. Okay, back to Find Steed. It's got these cool bonus actions that match where it comes from. It's got Life Bond. Instead of sharing spells with it, you share healing with it. So that's, that used to be a pretty powerful feature, maybe too powerful. So this is a little toned down from that. So that's probably good. Then Glimmering Smite used to be Branding Smite. Now this one has concentration. And up to a minute, the target does not get to repeat saves, though. So I think they should probably pick one way or the other and go with it. Searing Smite, same concentration. But it gets to repeat saves. Spare the Dying. So this is Necromancy. All the other healing has gone to Abjuration, so I think maybe that should go to Abjuration. It gives a creature a hit point back as a cantrip. Spare the Dying used to be a cantrip you should pretty much never cast because all it did was stabilize. They have some new mechanics for if you stabilize, quote unquote, you actually go back to 1 hit point, but you're still unconscious. I would think they should use the same thing with Spare the Dying. Or I saw online by DM Workshop, I think, on Twitter, an idea that every time you come back from being unconscious, you gain a level of exhaustion. And with the 10 levels of exhaustion now, that would work pretty good. Okay, more Smite. Staggering Smite. Staggering Smite. Stun condition, that's strong, but it's a 4th level one, so that's pretty cool. Thunderous Smite goes up with level. That's new. Wrathful Smite. Concentration goes up with level. Okay, now Rules Glossary. So, a whole bunch of new entries, whole bunch of revised entries, including getting rid of adding Heroic Inspiration or Heroic Advantage. Got rid of jump, which is good. Let's see, ability check's gone, attack roll's gone, climbing and swimming. Now it goes to move. Dash is gone, so I forget what it did in dash. Hidden condition, jump action, slowed condition, special speeds. So jump and special speeds is good. I got rid of those. That was kind of insulting how those were worded before and how they had to use an action. It's like we couldn't do math, so I'm glad those are gone. Okay, let's look at these. Equipping weapons. This is all new. If you equip a weapon before an attack, you don't need to use it for that attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing it from a sheath, picking it up, or retrieving it from a container. Unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing, or dropping. They're missing here between these two banishment, but then the spells are previous, not in glossary anymore, and I think it should still probably be using the old banishment or bark skin, both of those actually. Day's condition clarified you can't use a bonus action or a reaction. Moving through an ally, not difficult terrain. That's always been difficult terrain in second and fifth edition. I forget if it was in fourth. So that's a big change that a lot of people normally didn't even count. So it's like admitting defeat to people knowing the rules kind of feeling. Dying condition. You're unconscious, obviously. When you regain a hit point from 3 successes, you're still unconscious. It used to be just stabilized, you're still at 0 hit points. And you stay that way until you get more healing or a medicine check. Fly speed, clarified what makes you drop to 0 or drop to the ground. Grappled. They got rid of the slowed condition, so now moving someone you have grappled basically makes everything difficult terrain. Effectively, you move at half speed. They should limit how much bigger the grappled thing can be, like your size. I don't know that you should even be able to move something bigger than you. Unless you have some of those like, what would be a Goliath feature where they can like carry bigger things or carry things as if they were larger. Escaping. So they've gone back to using your action. So what did they have before? Let's see here. Before they were using saves. You got a free save at the end of your turn. Now you're using the action to make a strength or athletics check against the grapple DC. So the way it used to be in 5th edition. And they clarified how when you get out of their reach, they can't keep grappling you. And then there was a spell sitting here, I think. That's gone now. Now tools can be used with help. That's good. Heroic advantage. Okay, they're still doing it where you can do it after the roll. So it's either advantage. It's a re-roll if you don't already have advantage. And they don't clarify, what if you had disadvantage and you decide to use it after? Do you re-roll both dice? Do you drop one of them randomly? Unfortunately, having advantage disadvantage does not work well with re-rolls, and they need to be real clear on what this should be, and they're not yet. I'm still doing what we playtest that you have to declare it before you roll. Incapacitated, you can't take any action, bonus action, or reaction unless you say any actions, which include the two. No changes on influence. No changes on invisible. Knocking a creature out. They're not at 0, they're at 1, and it's like the same thing as if they had stabilized. Light weapon. You attack with a light weapon. It used to be you had to have it, one hand, a light weapon. Let's look at what it used to say. What did it used to say? This was under cleric and light. Light. Okay. So when you take the attack action, you turn and attack with a light weapon in one hand. It doesn't say it has to be in one hand anymore. So if you had somehow a two-handed light weapon, you could attack and then you could equip another one. You can make one extra attack as part of that same action. That extra attack must be made with a different light weapon. And it looks like you could draw it with the draw rules that are existing now. So that's a small little change. Long rest changed quite a bit. So let's look at the old long rest on the left here, the new one on the right. You're unconscious, they added that. Special features, recharge, they added that. Things that can interrupt, they added rolling initiative instead of combat, which I used to say, and taking the damage. And you can resume, that stayed the same. All right. Magic stayed the same. Movement. Okay. Move. Allies, again, are not difficult terrain. That's new. Special speeds. That's gone. And they don't really clarify, but you'd use whatever the old rules are in the player's handbook. Then Prayer of Healing, not there, but it should be in the spells. It isn't included, but I would still use this one. I don't think they meant to drop it. Ritual Casting, that's new, and what's gone now is Resistance. Ritual Casting. Oh, that didn't actually change, so that's all the same, okay? Then Spiritual Weapon gone. Again, probably still should use this one. You get to some clarification on that. Short Rest is a new description here, so let's look at it versus the player's handbook. Short Rest. So spells we were looking at. Short Rest, here we go. So what's new? You have to have a hit point to start. Special features, recharge, interrupting didn't exist before, and you just have to start over. Got interrupted. Design note, upcoming articles on warrior classes will introduce new weapon options. No change here. Telepathy is added, but it's the same as what's in the monster manual with some wording changes, slight wording changes. Tool, tremor sense, true sight. Small change in true sight here from what existed before. Let's look at that. Under invisibility, creature can see invisible creatures and objects. Creatures can see creatures that have the invisible condition and objects that are obscured by magic. So maybe just clarifying. Unarmed strike. I like where they're going. They're getting back to the way it used to be, except it's a saving throw still. It used to be if they hit, you were just grappled. You had no chance. Now it's a strength save versus the DC they set. It'd be great if they went back to the old opposed check. Still want to see that go back to opposed. The way it is now is just fine. This does not make it any funner, I don't think. Unconscious. I mean, we're being pedantic here. When the condition ends, you remain prone. It didn't say that before, but how long do you remain prone? So being pedantic like this then can bring up other stuff. Speed 0 can't change. Okay. So that's our new playtest. They dropped all the spells that had changed. I don't think they did that on purpose. Hopefully they'll give us some clarification on that. So we'll start playtesting this on our games, and let me know in the comments what you think of all these changes. Thank you for watching.